It says we're live, Sipple. There we are. Welcome
that?
in. Husker Extra Live, brought to you by Tom Dinsdale Automotive Group of Grand Island and Hastings. Much appreciation there. As you can see, Sipple and I are not. I'm Parker. That's Sipple. You guys know that. As you can tell, we are not at the Horseshoe. We are not at Ohio Stadium. We're back at the hotel. That's a COVID-related development. The good news is we don't have to wear the mask while we're doing this now, Sipple, like we do for post-game interviews or videos outside the stadium.
Because we're in separate rooms.
That's right. Yeah, we wouldn't have the split screen probably if we were in the same room. But here we are. We're back at the hotel. We just watched Nebraska lose to Ohio State 52-17. It was a game that was competitive at the beginning, most of the first half, and then felt very predictable after that. In fact, Sipple, we were talking about this after the game. Did a little math. You can find this in the PG version of our post-game content. But Ohio State's beaten Nebraska 6 straight times now, right? In 6 straight games, Ohio State has averaged, in those 6 wins, Ohio State's averaged 52.8 points per game, scored 52 tonight. The average margin of victory, 34.5 points, 35 today. So all in all, it just looked like what the series has looked like for the past 6 years.
Great stat. I mean, Parker, you started this off with a great stat. And, Nebraska, it was different than last year, though, when Ohio State won 48-7. And, Parker, the way I characterized it in my column is last year Ohio State didn't really break a sweat.
Right.
I thought they did have to break a sweat today because it was 14-14.
Right.
Then in Ohio State, I'm not going to give you the whole play-by-play, but
do it, please. Can you recite it every single play of the game?
No, it was 14-14. Ohio State kicked a field goal to go up 17-14.
Right.
And then kicked off, and Nebraska got a delay a game, and then went backward on that drive, and then punted, and a senior safety got a face mask penalty, and then a junior corner got an interference. Fields had a long completion. Teague got going downhill, and boom, Ohio State is up 24-14, and then comes out of the second half with an 8-play, 75-yard drive. It's 31-14, and it's over.
Yeah,
it's over at 31-14. Nebraska's not coming back against the prohibitive favorite in the Big Ten on its home field, down 31-14. Frost said as much after the game.
Yeah, and then that was when, and at that point, even you could see it going one of two ways when Nebraska got the ball with 3:12 left in the first half, right? I mean, they were either going to go make it interesting or Ohio State was going to score. I mean, that's just like that. And Ohio State did score, and then they scored again. And then it was even after that the turnovers came. Both Martinez's fumble and Luke McCaffrey's fumble came in the possessions after it had gone to 31-14. In fact, Martinez's fumble was run back for a touchdown to make it 38-14. So, all in all, obviously there's definitely things you can take to build off of. And you got the sense talking to Frost and a couple of players after the game that pretty much was like, just put this one in the rear view and get on to trying to make the most out of the rest of the season as you can. But obviously, I mean, the gap was on display, and we've seen some special players. I've seen some special players in this being my 4th season on this beat. And Justin Fields is, he's really, really good. You can see why he's a first-round pick. So it reminded me a little bit, the way he played and the efficiency with which he played reminded me a little bit of 2017 when we were at Oregon and we watched Justin Herbert roll up 400 yards in the first half. It wasn't as lopsided a half as that one was at Oregon. I think that was like 42-0, wasn't it? But the efficiency from the quarterback position was similar.
Well, he finished 20 of 21 passing. Did Justin Fields
for 276?
Yeah, for 276, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I'm not even sure he was close to a pick.
Because his only incompletion was the ball that Olave had on his hands in the end zone, but Boodle broke up at the last minute.
This game, Parker, was in many ways predictable. I think we had this game pegged pretty well. There's some things I didn't peg well. For instance, I thought Dedrick Mills would be a bigger factor.
Yeah.
But you knew Fields was going to be good. You knew their offensive line was stout, and it gave him good protection. Yeah, Nebraska got 3 sacks, but tell me that Fields didn't have a lot of time on a lot of throws. Just a
lot. I know. Yeah. Yep.
You knew. I'll tell you what else was predictable. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were predictable. Yep. You knew those were their 2 best receivers. Wilson had 7 catches. Olave had 6. Those are clearly the guys that Fields looks to first, right?
Yep.
You wondered about their running game, and I didn't think their running backs looked anywhere near J.K. Dobbins. And their defense gave up 377 yards, which now the conversation with Ohio State is always going to be, are they as good as Clemson and Alabama? Do they belong in that category? Right now, I'd say no. I don't think that you can say that after they gave up 377. Now, I know what you're going to say. Sipple, come on. They were in control early in the second half. What do you want? So, I don't know. People can debate it. I think their defense, it doesn't look anything like Clemson to me.
No, well, I think that's it'll be interesting to see how it develops, because that defense, they've got a bunch of new guys. And so if those guys come on quick and they develop quickly, they've got a chance to be right there at the end of it. But I think certainly they did not dominate defensively like they did last year. And Chase Young, has a lot to do with it. So does Jeff Okudah. 2 of the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. So anyways, let's get to some questions. A couple that sort of track along the same lines. Mark says, hi from Rapid City, South Dakota. What's up, Mark?
Mark.
James and Henry asked sort of versions of the same question. Do you feel better or worse about the rest of the season for Nebraska after this game? Or I guess just sort of what do you take away from today, and then, sort of spin it forward to what you think, how you think it applies the rest of the season.
All right, Parker. So they're going to play a team next week in Wisconsin that is not notorious, but has built a great reputation for not beating itself.
Right.
Nebraska today had 8 penalties for 90 yards and 2 turnovers by the quarterbacks. If they do that against Wisconsin, they won't win. That's my opinion. They're playing a Wisconsin team that may have an upgrade at quarterback, as it turns out. Maybe. Graham Mertz was
Graham.
20 of 21.
Yeah.
For 3 something.
No, it was in the 2s. I don't remember. It was similar.
276, I think. Yeah, 276, 5 TDs. Mm-hmm. My takeaway is Nebraska's going to be probably a 10 to 12 point dog on its home field, and they have to clean things up to get to where they can beat Wisconsin. So they have to do that quickly. They might be facing a defense, Parker, is every bit as good as Ohio State's.
Yep.
Wouldn't you say Wisconsin, Parker, is as good up front as Ohio State on defense?
Probably. Overall, it's so hard to tell, right? You're not comparing apples and apples at this point. I think it's possible that Wisconsin overall is better defensively than Ohio State right now. Now, we'll see how it plays out the rest of the year. They're definitely more experienced up front.
And in the secondary. Well, yeah.
And in the secondary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Offensively, though, so Wisconsin, obviously, they scored 45 points against Illinois last night, and Mertz looked good and all of that. No doubt about that. They were relatively pedestrian running the ball overall. Now, again, in this, all of these conversations apply to Nebraska too. Typically, you see teams make their biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. So the question for Wisconsin in terms of a run game is it talent or is it execution? Nebraska looked improved, if you want a silver lining. They handled the run game pretty well overall today. Ohio State leaned on them late in the game, and that's to be expected. But the longest run Nebraska gave up today was 21 yards. and that was to the backup quarterback late in the game when it was obviously already well out of reach. Gave up 3.6 yards per carry for the game. I'm not trying to like blow smoke here. I'm just saying that Wisconsin's receivers aren't as good as Ohio State's, and Nebraska played well against the run. So I think the defense is going to bear a lot of the responsibility next week. Overall, looking forward, definitely things to build on if you're Nebraska, but also, like you say, some concerning trends. I mean, what's plagued this team over the past 2 years? Being undisciplined, too many penalties, and turnovers. And we saw those things crop up today, just like we've seen them crop up over the last 2 years. So is that due to a long off season and a weird lead up and then playing one of the best teams in the country? Maybe that could be true. But it's also stuff that we've seen from this program, in recent years too.
There was a long lead up, an 11-month lead up to the game, right?
Yep.
And that definitely is a factor. But the circumstances were the same for both teams, and Ohio State had 1 turnover and 3 penalties.
Yep, played really clean, really clean.
So, I mean, I'll tell you what I hear a lot is a lot of excuses, not from the team, but from the fans. The officiating was bad, that sort of thing. I mean, come on. It comes down to you just got beat, and you got to rebound. And that's what we're going to see. It's Parker. A lot of this is pretty predictable, right?
Right.
You probably predicted a score similar to what happened.
49-21. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know that I saw too much that I didn't really expect.
Right.
And I don't know. I guess my biggest takeaway is I think the Wisconsin game is going to be a little tougher than I thought.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny because in the most odd, bizarre offseason ever, the game was eminently predictable. It turned out that way, at least. I mean, it's funny because what was any conversation you had about the game? Well, it's possible Nebraska starts fast because, they're going to have some wrinkles offensively and nobody's played defense in 11 months. But as the game goes on, you would just expect Ohio State to be too much. I mean, it doesn't always happen the way you think it's going to happen, but it certainly did today. Here's one I know you want to answer, Sipple. Michael asks, Sip, you took a lot of grief for your take on targeting. Thoughts after maybe looking at it again?
Well, I mean, the targeting call might be questionable, but I wouldn't back down on the notion that if you wrap up on that play and keep your head up, you're not going to get called for that. And he led with his shoulder. And I think when you lead with your shoulder, it's going to be dangerous. He went for a big knockout blow, and that's okay. I mean, the call is questionable. I will grant everybody that. But if you tackle, if you just try to wrap up, you're not going to get called. So no, I'd never back down on what I said. I'm surprised, frankly, by the reaction. Now I get it. It's a questionable call, but he went for a knockout blow. I don't know. Is there something wrong with just wrapping up and just form tackling there and trying to jar the ball with a form tackle? I don't know. I'm not always big on that whole leading with your shoulder, although you see it in the NFL every Sunday too. What do you think?
Let's see. Why do we? I agree with you. I mean, I don't.
You don't have to.
It happens. I mean, I agree with you to a point. It happens fast. I think you'd prefer a good form tackle. It's the least likely to get called. But I also understand that you're trying to make a play, and with the referees having the ability to look at it, I don't think you should. I didn't think it was a penalty upon review, but you know what you're getting. Okay, if you're going to do that, if you're going to try to make that play and lead with your shoulder, then you know what the repercussions are if you get the guy in the wrong spot.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
Why do we see so little of Sip's slightly smaller horse friend, Dedrick Mills, even with the focus on the ground game? Ethan asks.
That's, Parker, I was hoping you know that. He ran 10 times, I think, for 33 yards.
Yeah.
They didn't, it's possible Nebraska just felt it couldn't line up and run right at Ohio. Well, it's not possible. It's obvious they didn't feel like they could just line up and run Mills right at him, similar to the way they lined up and ran at Iowa in the second half of last year's game. Mills did 10 carries, 33 yards. They got him involved in the red zone, which was good. So I thought he'd be more involved. I wrote a whole story about it. Well, they said, he's the bell cow.
Yeah.
And Ryan Held, the running backs coach, said last week he would get a lot of work. Parker, what do you think?
Well, I think. Sorry, I disappeared there for a second. I was gotta get my stats out. I'm with you. I was surprised. Obviously, McCaffrey was a key part of the game plan in the run game, and the quarterback run was a heavy influence. I'm just going to try to do math off the top of my head here. Oh, it's actually not hard. 36 carries, 36 rushing attempts for Nebraska overall. Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey combined for 21 of them. So you had 21 runs from quarterbacks and 14 rushes from running backs. So, that says a lot, right? And again, it's one game, it's one game plan. We'll see if that distribution changes over the coming weeks. But I thought that I'm definitely with you. I thought we'd see a lot more of the running backs in the running game.
But you heard Frosty after the game, Parker, say that those quarterbacks are two of the best players on the team.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible that going forward they'll continue to be leaned on, and maybe they feel emboldened to lean on them because they have two.
Right. But you can't turn the ball over. That's the thing. You can't put the ball on the ground, and both of them did today. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on why Nebraska didn't take shots down the field, Nick asks. Even if you don't complete them, don't you need to at least try to stretch the defense and keep them honest? Nick, yes. But Nebraska at receiver, they just don't have much in the way of big play threats. Wando Robinson's going to be better used throwing him the ball and letting him create once he has the ball in his hands. Levi Falk was open on a deep out route on the play that Martinez threw deep for Vokalek where it almost got intercepted. But it wasn't a deep post or a vertical or anything like that. There's just not, that's one area that they really have to figure out. It's interesting. I saw Omar Manning on Twitter reference after the game that he can't wait to get back to work with his guys on Monday. And the sooner he's involved, the better for Nebraska at this point. I'm not saying he's going to be an instant cure, but Nebraska completed 16 passes today, 6 to wide receivers, all of them to Wandale Robinson. There wasn't a receiver. Levi Falk had one catch. So there you go. And Alante Brown had the one late. So 6 of the 8 catches from receivers were by Wandale Robinson.
And when you look at those guys, Wandale's a very good player. I don't think of him as a field stretcher.
Right. Exactly.
5'9". Same goes. Levi Falk might be. I just haven't seen enough of him to know. When I think of field stretchers, I think of Omar Manning, and that is. So you say that was on Instagram that you saw that Omar Manning?
The Twitter.
On Twitter, Omar Manning.
Do you know Twitter?
Yeah, I know Twitter because I lost about 400 followers today. Yeah, I took an L. So that's interesting that Omar Manning tweeted that he's looking forward to getting back with his teammates. They need a big-bodied receiver who can stretch the field. Parker, is it that? You don't have to be Hank Stram to understand that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm not Hank Stram, but I do understand that. Yeah. Okay. Brian asked, do you have any idea when Jordan Riley and Luke Reimer will be back? Brian, not exactly, but indications are that neither of the injuries is serious. Don't know for sure about Reimer. He didn't make the trip. Jordan Riley was on the trip. They had 8 defensive linemen. They still brought him and used a 74-man travel roster spot on him, even though he didn't suit up. So that would indicate that he's not that far away from being able to play. Obviously wasn't able today, but they wouldn't have brought him along if he had absolutely no chance of playing today. Why do our DBs not cover anybody? Shelley said. You say it, Shelley, but you say fairly it's not just Ohio State. Nebraska, like every team in the country, plays off coverage sometimes. But cushions, they gave the Ohio State receivers really big cushions most of the time today. I'll be interested when I go back and watch the game what that looks like, because they had a lot of space to work. Lucas asks, am I wrong for being encouraged after this game?
No, you're never wrong for being encouraged. I think that's fine. I think, though, Lucas, what I would suggest is you just size it up objectively. Don't go. I think there are reasons to be encouraged. Like, for instance, Colin Miller mentioned the tackling. I thought it was pretty good. I do think Nebraska rallied to the ball pretty well. They were intentional that way, and I thought that was a good sign. Yeah, I think you're really encouraged by the quarterback position. And Parker, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I thought they incorporated the quarterback game plan really well. It didn't seem awkward to me. I thought Frost, I wish I would have wrote that in a grade report. I thought Frost did a good job of inserting McCaffrey in good situations. It didn't seem awkward or forced or uncomfortable. I think those guys work well together. Yeah. And I think that's really a good sign going forward.
John, I don't know what you mean. I don't remember what I said that was obvious. So throw it back in the comments down here, and I'll catch up to it. We're just behind in the comments. Let's see. Nebraska ran for almost 6 yards a carry. Yeah, Lance, that's true. And early in the game, when it was 14-14 or when it was 17-14, they were up at 8.4. Obviously, they didn't run the ball as well as the game went on, and they were trailing, so you got to try to make plays. But yeah, we said before the game that Nebraska had a big veteran offensive line and senior back and two quarterbacks could run it. Thought maybe they could move it on Ohio State, and they did, especially early in the game.
Yeah. Now Ohio State averaged 4.6 yards a rush, and that's progress for Nebraska.
Yeah, and it was 3.6 in the first half. I mean, some of it, not all of it. I don't want to count out the second half entirely, obviously, but a good amount of that rushing average for Ohio State crept up in the fourth quarter too, when the game was way out of hand. Why do we see so much self-destruction by Nebraska? Kent asks.
Yeah, I mean, if I were a Nebraska fan and not an objective journalist, Parker, one of my principal concerns would be, and I wish I would express this stuff in words better, is you're outmanned by a lot of these teams. You're outmanned certainly against Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably you're outmanned against Wisconsin. And so if those teams are so clean, Wisconsin's known for being clean. Ohio State was clean today. How do you overcome? How do you overcome a talent gap if you're kind of sloppy? How do you do it?
Right.
I mean, I think there's got to be an emphasis on that. I think there probably is, but it's got to get better. I mean, if you're outmanned, then it's sort of incumbent on you to play a cleaner game than the team that's much more talented, right?
Yeah.
Or your chances to win are diminished significantly.
Indiana just scored and then got a 2-point conversion with 20 seconds left to tie Penn State at 28. Not to scare off all our viewers. I love
yourself.
Chris says, I love seeing Martinez and McCaffrey playing at the same time. Yeah, that stuff is really interesting. The two quarterback play. John in the comments is not happy with me. I don't know what about.
What happened, Parker?
I'm not sure. I don't know. He claimed that I said that Wisconsin overall is better than Ohio State. No, I said Wisconsin might be better than Ohio State on defense at this point after 1 week, but people can just make up what they want.
That's fair.
Perimeter blocking better point of attack on defense was vastly improved. Yeah, Lance, agreed on both. The perimeter blocking, I mean, if you want to know why the receivers that played today look no further than that. I mean, there was definitely an emphasis on that, blocking downfield and helping create space in the run game. Now, you got to be dangerous too. I mean, that's the bottom line. Tackling's better than a knockout blow. There, see, Kent's with you, Sipple. Let's see. If Frost has a losing season in his fourth year, and what do you Nate says, look at what Greg Schiano did at Rutgers today in his first game. It's about coaching.
Well, I mean, it's
also about Michigan State's really bad.
Yeah, it's a complicated discussion as it applies to Michigan State. But, I mean, Michigan State has a new coach, and I just don't – Parker, I wonder how much they practiced or how much they practiced compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
How much involuntary work did they get done compared to Nebraska? What do you think the ratio is there? About 1/8? But the same is true for Rutgers. So that is an interesting loss by Michigan State. It's a good pick by you to pick Rutgers. There's very few people that would have done that. So kudos to you.
Lucky, I guess. Let's see. Sorry if you already answered this, but at some point is McCaffrey just going to be the guy at quarterback? It feels inevitable, Jeff says. Sipple, did you think that Adrian Martinez played bad?
Nope. I don't think it feels inevitable. It's an interesting discussion because I thought Adrian looked he was in command, I thought. Adrian was 12 of 15 passing for 105 yards.
Right.
12 of 15 passing. He ran 12 times for 77 yards, 6.4 a carry. Those aren't numbers that you get benched for, right?
That's what I thought. That's what I think. But, I mean, I know that for some people – I mean, obviously, it wasn't enough to win. I get that. I mean, it's got to be better. And certainly they have to be more dangerous in the passing game going forward. I mean, it's all well and good to complete 80% of your passes, but – 105 yards on 15 attempts isn't you got to get more production than that. Of course, it's not all on the quarterback. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was a performance by Adrian Martinez that's going to change the conversation at quarterback from the way it's being split right now. Is there anything on Stoll? Jack Stoll, Michael asked. No, there's not. Frost didn't know after the game. Certainly didn't look good. Left knee for Jack Stoll. If he's out for the season, we'll probably find out on Monday if they know, if he tore something or has to have surgery. But if not, we may not get public word on that. So we'll endeavor to find out for you on Monday. Let's take a couple more and then ditch this, Sipple. Tough loss to have two secondary starters out for the first half against Wisconsin due to targeting, Ken says.
Absolutely. It is really tough.
Yeah.
What do they do there, Parker? So Cam Taylor-Britt is out. He's a starting corner. Deontay Williams starting safety. What's it going to look like in the secondary?
Yeah, I think the most natural way to do it probably, and based on the way they played today, which you never know with a week of practice. I mean, they know what the situation is going to be, so it could change. But the most likely scenarios seem to be that Quinton Newsome starts at corner opposite DiCaprio Boodle, and then Miles Farmer slides in and starts at safety alongside Mark Heldesmuth. Those would be the most. And then after that, I mean, that's what we're talking about. After that, though, now you're starting to get down to it, to where, if anybody had to go out, or if you're talking about packages or whatever, then you're talking about either Noah Pola-Gates or true freshmen, basically, in Taman Lynham or Ronald Delancey at corner. So definitely going to test Nebraska's depth in the secondary next week. Joe says Penn State missed a field goal. Oh, man. So Indiana's going to have a chance to win it. Late in the convo, chances of the targeting disqualification being overturned. Yeah, Michael, Frost was asked about that after the game. He said he didn't know exactly how that worked. Obviously, that would take an appeal to the Big Ten, which they may well do. But I don't know if there's a precedent for anything getting overturned in that regard. We'll have to look into it and get back to you on that. But I guess at this point, once the decision's made and the call's confirmed, I'd be surprised if the suspension got overturned. I don't actually know if that's happened before, but we'll find out. Let's see. It's pretty simple, fellas. John says it's Ohio State, and they're probably the best team in the country. Chalk this one up. We just came out with little to no injuries, and number 2 is our guy.
I've seen Alabama and I've seen Clemson, and I'd say Ohio State's not the number 1 team in the country, but I'd say they're number 3. I'd slot them comfortably at number 3.
All right, there you go. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate this. Obviously, we're in it now, so we'll be back at you with more content tonight, tomorrow, all of next week. Nebraska 0-1 after a 52-17 loss to Ohio State. They got Wisconsin at Memorial Stadium next weekend on Halloween. It's a 2:30 kick. We appreciate Tom Dinsdale Automotive Group of Grand Island and Hastings for sponsoring this and our podcast all football season long. So that's it from Columbus. We'll have more for you at huskerextra.com. That's Sipple and Parker. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody.